Hello and welcome to Culture Vultures. I'm Sandy Frye, your host. Our creative director is Nancy Cole. And this program looks at arts and culture around Tampa Bay. We're doing this program in the run-up to the National Convention, which is going to send thousands of people to Tampa in a very short time. And Tampa is obsessing about it. It's sort of like the junior in high school who's just been invited to her first prom by the captain of the football team. And she's thinking, what'll I wear? Will he like me? Should I wear heels? How about my hair? Oh dear, oh dear. Well, it got to making me think, how does a city express its nature? I was in Chicago about 3 weeks ago and went on a tour, during which time a docent explained that there is in Chicago what's known as a Miracle Mile. And this was created in the late 1980s when the city fathers and the movers and the shakers realized that 3 of their most important industries and corporations were leaving or failing, and that would leave Chicago in the lurch. So they decided they would become the city which had a beautiful waterfront and where all the conventions, all the meetings of any corporation or association would naturally be attracted to, because the Miracle Mile is filled with lavish hotels and wonderful restaurants and shopping galore and enough police security to make it safe at 10 p.m. or 4 a.m. But outside of that, you have real Chicago. Well, there's real Tampa. And Tampa does have a personality. And I think that one of the most wonderful ways it expressed its personality was last weekend, where there were 3 individual events staged in Ybor City. And it said a lot about Ybor City, and it said a lot about the artists in Tampa. And my guests today were 2 participants in it. Carolyn Kosar is the director of the art gallery at Hillsborough Community College in Ybor City. And Lazslo Horvath was an artist whose work was represented in the exhibition, which began several days ago and will continue. Carolyn, for how long?
The exhibit began August 3, and it will go through August 30.
And it was a sort of assembled, and as a matter of fact, the whole weekend series of events was conceptualized by David Audette. Everybody in the arts must know David. He has been very important and instrumental in the Artists and Writers group. And they are constantly doing events that not only are entertaining, they give some sense of the culture, and they also are food for thought. And last week's event was definitely food for thought. It began Saturday morning with a panel discussion of the Cuban sandwich. It had E.J. Salcinas, whose knowledge of Ybor City is encyclopedic. He is a former judge and a very, very vibrant presence in Tampa. Gary Mormino, who's a historian. There was a USF librarian and archivist. Yola Capine, who had a wonderful story to tell about her debate with the mayor of Miami. And they were considering what could represent Ybor City's cuisine heritage. And that automatically led to the Cuban sandwich, but with a lot of things in between. You were there. What is your impression of it, Carolyn?
It was wonderful.
I thought so,
It was wonderful. Andy Host was another panel member, and he wrote a book on the Columbia restaurant.
That's right.
And they had the proclamation. Yoli spearheaded the proclamation that made the Cuban sandwich the signature sandwich of Tampa.
That's right.
And there were bakers from the the owners of the older bakeries in Tampa, Olympia Bakery, and some bakeries that I don't even know about.
Yeah, was El Segunda in there too? I saw that in the Cuban sandwich itself the next morning, but I knew there were many, and many people had been part of the history of the development of the cuisine.
And toward the end, when we had a question and answer discussion period, the gentleman who owned the bakeries got up and said that basically the Cuban bread is what made the sandwich.
That's right.
And there was big debates on why the palm frond was in the bread.
There were two ways to read it. They had
Yeah.
these huge wood-burning furnaces when they were very hot, and then, well, that brings in you, Lazlo, in a minute. But one person said, well, these thin strips of the palm would change color, and that's when the bakers knew it was done. And someone else said, no, it's when they began to lift up. That's when it was done.
Yeah.
And there were little finite distinctions made.
Yeah.
And I thought they were terrific. They also talked about the development of cuisine and noted, and I think it was E.J. Salsinas who said, the Spanish who came to America were not used to a meat diet. They were vegetarians. He said if they had beef or any other kind of meat, any more than maybe 3 times a year, it was a good year. Yeah. And they came to a place where, not immediately obviously, but when Ybor City developed, the cigar makers and workers began to develop the kinds of food and dishes they were accustomed to, but they had to use what was at hand. And what was at hand wasn't always what was in hand in Spain or in Cuba. So they developed, for example, the crab enchilada, because there were plenty of crabs.
Right.
And in a little bit of interesting background, they said it was a Tampa Times food editor who, during the 1970s, realized that red snapper, which had been the basis of so many dishes in Ybor City, was becoming very expensive, and it could soon price itself out of the reach of most people in Ybor City. So she asked what was the best substitute and something that people could afford, and that's how the grouper came into being. And the grouper's wonderful. That's
Grouper
wonderful.
Sandwiches.
Well, that was part of it, and it was certainly terrific. Yoli Capan, as I said, told a wonderful story. She debated the mayor of Miami about who was superior in the way of Cuban sandwiches, and at the end of the program, the mayor had to admit it was Tampa. At least she said he admitted it was Tampa, and I'm sure he did. But then there was the art, and the art represents Ybor City and Tampa. And I know, although David curated it, you can tell us what it was like.
It's a wonderful, eclectic show. Basically, David made the gallery into a series of rooms, like a labyrinth, where we had Surface Design Guild members. We invited them to create panels, and they created complex cloth panels that were dyed and over-dyed and shiboried and stamped and silk screened, and they kind of hang from the ceiling as separators, so that you can walk through the gallery into these different rooms. We have Stephen Gregory, who was the photographer laureate of Tampa. We have Melissa Fair. Lazlo did a wonderful installation called Fanatics, involving video and photos and self-portrait. And then we have Joanne Carpe, who's a painter, who did an interesting installation with video going through a screen door. Very nice. It's a painting of Florida, beautiful marshland, and through the screen door are projected construction areas, like big cranes. So projected through the screen door onto the painting are those construction sites, and you see the land being taken away.
Yes,
and
that's one of the things I was thinking of.
All that kind
gave you that feeling of a beautiful land being reclaimed and not restored, but claimed by industry.
Right, taken away and being developed.
And when I saw your photographs, I was fascinated, because I had been in the museum. I think it was the Ybor Museum where you saw this huge fan.
No, it's my place actually. I'm renting a studio and
it had a huge
cigar factory building, and this fan is almost next to my door. So this excited me for years and years, but I been thinking for a long time how to capture the excitement of the light and the noise, and so it was very inspiring, this film, for a long time. And I started with make a couple of collages. The first one, photo-based collages. And the second movement was the video. I made a movie a few months ago in this year. And by the end, I wanted to make a complete installation of the subject, the movie, and the still photography, and the self-portrait in the collage. And almost the last moment, I made the series of the still photos of the 6 images of the fan. And this was the last time. And I haven't seen the installation until the opening of the show. Actually, even I was participating, and I trusted David. I said, "You do what you want. How you want to project the video, how you want to install the still images or a collage." And so I trust you because I know he's fantastic about it, and he did an outstanding job on this show. I was really shocked when I saw the first time. I expected much, but not that much. So it was a wonderful installation.
You had told me that the sight of the fan sort of moved you to remember fans. Were you welding when that?
Yes,
when you
I was
big
in
fan?
my 20s. I just was freshly married, and I needed some money to make up my. It was the first years actually when I started to be really obsessive about photography. And I could not afford a camera. It was my first DSLR camera when I bought this time. And I needed a couple of lenses, so I needed a second job. And I didn't have too many choices to make up money, so I just would look around, what can I do? And somebody made me a recommendation. This company hires welders. And I'm not a welder, how to do it? I said, you have to go to learn it. And so I went to the school, learned a few months of welding, and I got hired for a company and started to weld bus frames for Icarus, it's a big company. And so I did very well. And actually I enjoyed the job. It was really hard.
It is hard.
Really
My
hard,
father was a welder.
But the visual part, the melting steel and the smoke and the light, the flashing lights, was amazing for me. And when I saw this fan the first time, I had some backflashes to that time when I was welding, and so I put together this portrait with a goggle and the fan. It was a kind of part of this time.
Oh, that's wonderful.
When I was a welder.
And you chose photography as your medium pretty much
For a
from
long time.
the start.
Yes.
That's good. What does photography do for you as a means of expression that's, say, painting or collage or encaustic, might, or sculpture?
Actually, I started get involved in arts with drawings and paintings. And when I started to do photography, I find out this is somewhere closer. I like the technical part, and it's hard to tell. I think a lot of people went through this. The back and forth with drawing, painting, and photography,
right.
and also music. So I always had a hard time to choose which one I want to stick with until now. And it's a cycle. I do one for a while and the other one for a while, and going back and forth. And this is the time now that I think photography always been the most important, and this is
I would say
the more consistent than anything else in my.
You can take it with you, and you can react or respond to something
Yes.
that your eye sees at the moment. It always occurred to me that photography was always the medium. If you carried a camera, and now cameras are becoming so portable and so exquisitely delicate and fine, that it's easy to carry your instrument with you, and it's ready to go, ready to shoot, and that makes a big deal of difference, because when you come back, well, not for an artist, but because that's why you are one. But when you come back from a certain event that has given you a specific impression, trying to recapture exactly what it was is sometimes very hard. Photographers, I think, have the ability to suddenly see something that's terrific. There is a photograph that is pretty well known, and it shows, it's a country scene, and there is, maybe in Ohio or somewhere, there's a fire engine and a house on fire, and there are people who are fighting the fire, firemen. But over here, there's a pile of pumpkins, and one fireman is simply taking the pumpkins and putting them on his truck. And I thought that was very, very funny. It tells the whole thing immediately, and that's terrific.
Just one image,
right? That's right.
1,000 words. Yes.
Well, in the second day, there was yet another event, and this one was a definite challenge. The Guinness World Book of Records lists Miami as having the world's largest Cuban sandwich. And Tampa didn't take that lightly. So the next morning, a very interesting thing happened. Miami holds, or did hold, the world record for a Cuban sandwich, which was 30 feet long. But that wouldn't do for us. There was a 36-foot-long Cuban sandwich being made by about 7 bakeries and chefs. And they each made the Cuban sandwich, their portion of the Cuban sandwich, according to what they do. And by the way, one of the distinctions, I believe, that was made between other Cuban sandwiches that weren't from Tampa and Tampa's was that we use salami, and not just salami, Genoa salami. And you were there, Carolyn. Wasn't it wonderful?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Although it rained, event was supposed to take place outside.
Mm-hmm.
There were 7 restaurants from Ybor who made that huge sandwich. And Steve Otto came and did the official measuring. And Michel Fado's truck was there. They won the best traditional Cuban sandwich.
Did they?
At the Cuban Sandwich Festival that was held, I think, in April at Centennial Park. When Miami was involved. Oh. And Miami came in 3rd.
Really?
Yeah.
Who came in 2nd?
I can't remember. Gaspar's Grotto, I think, on 7th Avenue. Yes. For non-traditional, best non-traditional Cuban. And then I'm not sure what Miami's was. But yeah, that was a very nice event.
It really was.
Yeah.
And by the way, we certainly hope it will be recorded in the Book of Records.
Yeah.
Toot sweet. And that was another one. The third event came on Sunday late in the afternoon.
Yes.
And it rained and rained. And I certainly hope it doesn't continue to rain and rain next week. I think that would be something we can't control and don't really need. But it didn't stop the activities, because this was a rooster walk. And it was celebrating a rooster whose name was unfamiliar to me.
James E. Rooster.
Yes. Who was James E. Rooster?
James, well, you know, his grave is there at Tommy Stevens' house. And there are, I don't know how many chickens and roosters he has there, but they live underneath his house and they live out in the grass. And that little homage to James Rooster, I don't know how long it's been there, but we all marched over there down 7th Avenue, dressed in our costumes, and we had baby carriages and umbrellas that were decorated, and people who were looking like chicken costumes. And
That's right.
Noisemakers. It was
wonderful fun.
Yeah,
well, I was about
really
10 minutes behind everybody because it was raining longer at my house. So jumped into the car, and I saw that the map said it was first Big Al's Finger Lickin' Barbecue. Mm-hmm. I went there, and there was nobody around, but somebody tuning up a big music box that was blasting out. And he said the chickens had gone. They were on their way. So the next place was Dirty Shame, I think, or Gaspar's Grotto.
Gaspar's Grotto.
Gaspar's Grotto. They said they've been here. Then we went up to Dirty Shame, and there's a little patio there. I said, have you seen any chicken? Oh, we said, yeah, they were here a minute ago. But you can see them between those two houses. You see that? And I'm looking at them, and I see little chickens running around, way in a distance.
Yeah.
He said, you can make it right over there. So I ran over there, and I just missed the biggest celebration. And there were about 7 to 8 chickens having wonderful fun over here in this little field. Then there was a long table, and there were various representations of chickens. There were little statues, there were stuffed chickens. There was this wonderful rooster who was being towed, and he was in all his plumage. And then I heard honking, and I looked over, and up from across the street I see one little white hen running like crazy across the street. She's being pursued by what looks like a bigger, darker rooster, and the two cars are just stunned, and they're honking. And I thought it was a great way to end it. It was a good thing. Did they have a chicken beauty contest?
No, they didn't. But that was the first annual.
I think it should have to be
barbecue
an annual
and
event.
Chicken rooster promenade.
Yes, because all in all, I have got to say that there was this combination of good humor, reaching back into Ybor City's past. And may I say that I think it was E.J. Salsinas who noted that Ybor City was founded before Tampa, officially certified. I think they were certified in 1888, and a year later, Tampa was officially created. And so they have a year going back on them. But also that there were very interesting things happening in Ybor City from the get-go. It was a city where the workers came in with skills, and that makes a big difference in creating a town. And they also created the kinds of institutions that would allow them to flourish in that city, like the clubs, which included a health clinic, it included a concert stage, it included a place where groceries were bought in mass, and everyone, I think, took a share, paid for a share, and it was divided. There was nothing that I think you had to go outside of Ybor for when in the early days, and it made them, they were their own amusement. They had the lector who read not only from the daily newspapers, but also from classic books and had classic themes. The workers went home, told their families about what was read that day, and you had one of the best informed and most literate communities in the world. I think that's amazing. I know that, Lazlo, you came to Tampa in what year?
1985.
1985. Was that directly from Hungary?
No, I lived in Austria for 1 year in a refugee camp, and when I came to America, I lived in South Dakota for another year, and before I came to,
what led you here?
I had some friends from the refugee camp, a Hungarian family. Yes. And we used to correspond once for a while in a year when I was in South Dakota, and they pushed me really hard to come over, and I said, you will be happier here. And I was just thinking for a while, and one day and I just jumped in the car and drove down. I didn't have too much to lose. I had a job over there, but it was more promising to move here, especially as a photographer, and the climate. And since I never had other invitation, so I stuck here for 20-something years, and I lived in the area for in Clearwater, Largo, Tampa, so the Tampa Bay area. Since.
And what appeals to you about this? Is it the rain? I'm kidding, of course.
Tampa is a really rustic town. The old cigar factory building. This was a main attraction for me. I think it's for many artists. Tampa, the old building, the cigar factory buildings, and the streets, the bricks and the roads, and when I explored the first time accidentally Ybor City. I couldn't find a way out of the town. I went somewhere, and I ended up in Ybor City. And I said, wow, I'm in heaven. And nobody told me about this thing. I was just here for a couple of weeks in Tampa. And it was amazing, and I couldn't wait the next time to go back again and start to do photography in Ybor City.
Terrific.
I think Ybor City is the heart of Tampa for me.
Right. Well, I hope that people discover Ybor City. It's the heartbeat of Tampa. Your gallery is going to show this for until the end of the month. And do you have the next exhibition in mind?
Yes,
What
yes.
is that?
The next exhibit, well, I have a whole year planned
I know.
of exhibits coming up. We stay busy. We change about every 4 to 6 weeks. And our next exhibit is called The Jerry and Steve Show. And it's a homage to 30-year art instructors, Jerry Meatyard and Stephen Home.
That's wonderful.
And their studio assistant at, I guess we're talking now 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And their studio assistant, Patrick Thompson, is in touch with about 40 or 50 alumni from their classes, and they are sending in artwork.
It's always been interesting, and you both have been most interesting and informative. Thank you for being with us.